Hi, my name is Mo. I am one of the co-founders of Blabberize, and welcome to the Blabberize podcast, where we talk about Blabberize and media creation and educational stuff. I'm here with Kimi, who is also a founder,
Hello.
and we are deciding. We thought we'd look at Blabberize EDU together today because there's a lot of history about what we've done on this site and problems that we felt like we've solved, problems that we still feel like are there, a lot of features that we're proud of, and things that we're not sure everyone is aware of. We thought it'd be fun just to look at it together. Just give a commentary on kind of our experience with building this site as well as using it and kind of interacting with users. Kimmy, do you have like something that you're excited about talking about here with Blabberize EDU?
Yeah, so I think kind of the main differences between EDU and the main site are like being able to organize things into groups, right? Um, Being able to submit blabbers to those groups and manage student accounts, stuff like that. So yeah, all those are kind of like the big differentiators. I would say if we can hit those,
Yeah.
that'd be good.
So high level, if you're on you come to blabberize.com, you're gonna actually hit this main site, and this main site is free for everyone to use. You're able to make blabbers and save them and download them as video, like all the features that you'd expect for media creation. Blabberize EDU is specifically for educators. If you go to edu.blabberize.com, it allows you to create student accounts so your students can log in individually. It allows you to manage your students' accounts so you can log in and see what the students are creating. Also, um, submit them to assignments so you can group them together, and that's like a very strong differentiation. You Logins that work on the Blabberize EDU site do not work on the main site. Logins that work on the main site do not work on the EDU site, and this was done with some thought for privacy, which we'll dive into more. But just wanted to make that distinction clear. um, with that, should we log in? Let's log in, and
Yeah,
see what this is like. So login is going through edu.blabberize.com. You'll hit the login link up at the top right when you come in. Um,
we
yeah.
probably want to. I think we're covering up the view of the site right now, so
Oh, that's right. We log in, and this is what it looks like. Once you log in, we can log in again. Here, let's do it again. You come to the site. You can watch the video of the alpaca explaining things.
highly
Come to
recommend.
Yeah, I highly recommend. There's a lot of work that went into that. And the alpaca has a lot to say too. Come in and log in. We're using a test account here that I think Kimmy set up with like a bunch of example blabbers and example groups. Um, yeah, so this group setup, I think this is actually from Kimmy. This is like how we figured things would work. We thought that groups were anything that could be an assignment, a classroom, or a group of students, basically. Kimmy, you want to talk about your thinking about this one? I know you
Yeah,
spent a lot of time on this, like months on this.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, the idea here is that you can come in, you sign up, you create one group to begin with, right? Like, let's say you're a biology teacher and you are creating your Blabberize account so that all your kids can do like sea turtle and whale reports, right? And so you come in here and you make your group and you can add students to it. We can go through what that entails, right? So, okay, in this example, history. Let's go with history then. Sorry,
Hmm.
you're not a bio teacher, you're a history teacher. Um, why I didn't just go with what was on the screen? I don't know. So, so you come in and you can manage your classroom, right? You've got your list of students. They've each got their own login information they can log into, but you get to see them as part of your class and manage, who gets to be in the class, all that kind of stuff. You can invite them through that link. So basically, you just send them a link for them to sign up themselves. Um, and
We can
this
go into
basically
this into more detail about this too, because this is a pretty interesting little system that we kind of had to work through. Like we had login issues, but anyways, didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Did you want to go through that now, or should we
No, no, we'll come
circle
we'll
back?
come back to it. Because we'll go through the tabs up here.
Okay, okay. So yeah, here's just your high level look at who your students are in your class, right? Um, and
You
then
can
you can,
you can create
yeah. So
users too. So it's like if the way that like basically the system would work is If you were a teacher for, let's say, a second grade class, we assume that you're only going to have like a set number of students that you're working with. It's not like a middle school teacher who has like a multitude number of classes with many students. And you can go through and create every single individual student's account here. We have some means that we can talk about later of like being able to do this through like a spreadsheet that you can upload. But for most teachers, being able to enter the students' usernames, first and last name, you don't have to put in a password or I'm sorry, not a password, an email or a school ID. You give each student a password, it could be the same password for all of them, and now you have all your student accounts, and you basically just distribute that login information for them.
Yeah, so I mean, you can do your legwork up front of setting up all these student accounts instead of trying to take the first like 10 minutes at the beginning of class to tell everybody hurry up and sign up. So this is just to hopefully make that process like a little bit easier. So that's kind of the gist of the Students tab, I think.
Do you want to talk about
Then,
like the idea of like a group within a group?
so yes, but I think we should establish like what a group is
Okay, let's go to
first.
teachers. Let's see. Let's look
Yeah,
at teachers.
okay, so yeah, and here similarly, you've got your list of teachers that belong to your EDU account. And so the difference between students and teachers are like permission levels. So we wanted to give teacher accounts a bit more admin privileges over, they can edit student accounts, they can remove blabbers from groups, stuff that you wouldn't necessarily want the students themselves to be able to do. Like you can create an account as another teacher.
Hmm.
So that's why there's separate tabs for students and teachers.
And the idea for this was like, if you have a student teacher or someone who's working with you, basically giving them access to that group. So if you are all basically collectively working with the same set of students, you all have administrative rights over those students. But it's within this group. So if you had another classroom where there were a different set of administrators or teachers for that, you create that for that specific one too. It's just like high granular control of who gets access to what, who's controlling what.
Okay, we maybe want to skip over to the Blabbers tab.
Sure.
So here now you see a list of blabbers associated with this group. So basically, you can see in the submitted by column, you've got Manny Everett and Kaylee Smith, and looks like Mr. Jones has also submitted a blabber. And so you can basically, it gives kids the ability to create their own blabbers with their own accounts and then share them with your group. And so that's what you're seeing here. These are the blabbers that have been shared with this particular group, History 8A. So that's kind of the gist of what a group can hold. It can hold students, it holds teachers, it holds blabbers. Um, did I leave anything out? Is that basically the gist of it, Mo?
Yeah, do we wanna click through and look at kind of like the Blabber view of like when you click through here? I'm just
Yeah, yeah,
gonna
yeah. Let's do that.
open up a new tab with this one. Um, so this is the normal view that you'd see for a Blabber.
Oh, it's so cute. She's some.
You can just play the Blabber and see it speak. You can also see the group that it's been submitted to, so you can see if the student has like given it to assignments. You can submit on behalf of the student too. So if your student hasn't submitted it, you can click on submit to group, and then you're able to see basically all the various groups in this one. If the student forgot to submit it to the favorite historical figure group, you can submit it on their behalf or remove it from that group too. And I think it's valuable to be able to recognize that when it's within a group, you can go and actually go to that group tab, and you're able to see all those blabbers together. So it's the whole point of like when you submit it to a group, that's where you'll basically see them together. It's useful for if you're trying to show it in a presentation or kids are looking at them in a class. Generally, like with the browse tab, um, if you're within your browse class, yeah, you can get access to all of them.
Yeah. So basically, just to reiterate, it's just a way to share that blabber with your class. Like if you make a blabber and save it, it's in your account. Let's say you're a student that you've made your blabber with about George Washington, you've saved it, but submitting it to a group is basically sharing it with the class, turning it in. And so that's kind of the gist of how that works.
And kind of like the reason we implemented this system like this of like having groups that the Blabbers are being submitted to is teachers were trying to do more and more complicated things with a single account. So before EDU existed, a teacher would have a single Blabberize EDU account, and then they would give that single account to their entire classroom. Their students would all flood into there, and everything they submitted was all on a single browse page. So they had no way to differentiate. So the teachers are having to implement these weird naming systems where like they'd say, make sure you put in your account number before you do this, or your class number before your Blabber name. And the students, of course, they always wouldn't follow through, and so then there was a struggle of finding where that Blabber was submitted, or if it was submitted at all. And then there were more odd cases where students were then changing other students' Blabbers as well too, or editing things. And that level of control just wasn't available on the main site. So this system, which is sometimes both of us like we struggle with explaining it and making sure that like teachers understand why it's like this compared to the simplified version on the main site. It's to empower teachers so they can have access to all this sort of control.
Yeah. And like organizationally, like I think we'll get into like groups within groups next, and that follows in the same vein of wanting to give control and just be able to organize assignments and everything a bit better. And this is one of those things, as Mo said, we struggled with because the more flexible you make it, the more confusing it is. And so what we kind of want to do is clear that up. And obviously, if any of you out there are using Blabberize EDU and you have feedback on how to make this clearer, or even if it's anything vague, just like, I didn't understand how the group thing worked, like, we would love to hear it. We really are looking for feedback because, having worked in this for so long, like, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. But if I were coming into this fresh, I don't know that I would see it the same way. So outside perspectives always help.
There's a lot of thoughts that we had initially that didn't necessarily work out. So one of the things was we wanted to really give students a sense of privacy so that students would be able to come to Blabberize EDU and create without oversight and be able to submit. Like initially, it was the students would get to submit the Blabber that they wanted the administrator and educator to see. So they would get like kind of a free space to kind of experiment and play without oversight. Like they're going to be exposed. And so when we first built this, if your Blabber wasn't submitted to a group, the teacher would not be able to see it unless they logged in as the student. And this created, oh my God, we got emails about this, and we explained it. I don't know how many times we were thinking like, oh, this is a feature that's important for the students. We want them to have freedom. It's like, no, it was confusing for the educators, and the educators, like, we really kind of came around that like there is a sacred relationship with the educator and the student. The educator is the one who has to build that trust with that student, and we aren't supposed to build systems that get in the middle of that. And so one of the things that we ended up building here, like you can see this link down here, if your student didn't submit their Blabber, you can view their unsubmitted Blabbers. So if your student comes to Blabberize and they create a Blabber and they don't submit it to the group and the teacher doesn't see it, we placed this here so that you could click on this link, and now you can see basically any Blabber that hasn't been put into a group and get access to it and submit it on their behalf. But you get to see their student work. It's not something that's lost. You can also come to this by clicking on Blabber but unsubmitted. But this is a feature that we ended up having to implement as an afterthought. Like this was in the early days where like teachers were just like, I can't get access to my students, or I don't know. My students say they've done their work. I don't know where it is. And it was also us understanding that, we had this sort of goodwill intention of like giving students this free space, but really it is the teacher's relationship with their student.
Yeah, and I think just as you said, hearing that feedback from actual users using it, like we would not have come to that conclusion unless we heard from people. And so
in very stern ways sometimes, but like we were grateful for all of it. Like you can write us an angry email and I will read it and I will always respond with a thank you, because we hopefully don't frustrate anyone to that point, but we also understand if someone is frustrated, they care about the service, and we really do want to fix things so that it like works best for like educators, like you got 30 kids in there, and if there's even a small problem, it's multiplied across all the students.
Unlimited time to, like, you've got however
Right.
long to get this
40
assignment
minutes to get
done.
it done, right?
Yeah,
And the kids are screaming. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of history behind that kind of stuff. But hopefully we've arrived at a reasonable place. But
We
I don't
haven't we
think so
haven't heard
briefly.
too
So
much about this one, so I'm assuming that it's working better. But yeah, I think we've
yeah,
come to a better place. You want to talk about sign up links now?
yeah, yeah. Why don't you want to take that away?
Yeah, this was so sign up links was a big deal. So um initially the teachers were having to sign up their students. So if you were a middle school teacher and you had like 150 kids, or a librarian where you had basically the entire school that you were taking care of, you'd have to create every single student account. Every single one you were entering in by hand. We found that to be cumbersome. The teachers basically let us know that it was cumbersome. So we created this new process, which is called sign up links. And the student sign up link is you can generate a link that you're able to distribute to your students. And we have a link here for Google Classroom, but teachers can use Flipgrid or whatever that their means of communication is with their students. You just copy this link and you can send it out. We spent a lot of work on this specific feature because, once again, as privacy is a concern, we didn't want this link to just remain open. We wanted hopefully a teacher to give it at the beginning of class, and then once the class was over, that link would be removed. And so you can remove these links at any time, and they're also generated with an expiration on them. So they're supposed to go away. You open the door, you let the kids in, you let them sign up so they are able to build their access, and then you shut it down. And this was largely because we were reading a lot about Zoom bombing that was happening on, where a teacher would have a classroom, they put the link for the Zoom class in a public place, and then nefarious people who were wanting to do something horrible would jump into that classroom uninvited, and now they had the viewing of all these students. And so we I mean, like, there's a huge preamble here on this, like, bottom of the page here of like, what are sign up links? Why don't we just leave sign up links open? It's like we were really hoping that teachers would understand and be able to be kind of the arbiters of security for their students here. This has been pretty successful. I think a lot of teachers have actually told us that this is a great feature and they found it really useful. Um, so yeah, we have sign up links. I think like you'll also notice that you have sign up links for teachers too, which is really key. So you can actually just send it out if you want all your teachers to sign up, and then they'll have access to make sign up links also for their students as well too.
So a couple of things to clarify when we say that the sign up link expires. The link itself expires for creating new accounts, but if you share that link with your student and your student signs up with it, after that week, the student account is still active. They still get to stay. It's just
Right.
the link itself for signing up new accounts goes away. Um, and then, as we explained before, like, student accounts, work differently. They have less privileges than teacher accounts, and so, that's why there's a difference between signing up students versus signing up teachers. So when you blast that link to your class, it's going to be the student sign up link. But if you're sharing it with your teacher's assistant, or whoever, then you would use the teacher sign up link instead.
Right. I mean, clicking just on this link here. Let me log out and just kind of show what it looks like where you're logging in to sign up as a student. Um, so yeah, you'd basically just get the sign up. The students do not have to enter a password here. If there's or they don't have to enter. Sorry. Um, I
Email.
think email. Right. It's not included. They can just go through this. There's even like a walk me through, which basically tells you every single part that you need to enter in.
Yeah. And then, just to be clear, since I think we're going through a lot of this like pretty quickly, um, the reason, one of the main driving reasons for a specific sign up link is because this is your own ecosystem. This is your class. It's not going to include anybody from outside, normal Blabber users, other schools, nothing. It's like they don't exist. And so we're really trying to encapsulate just the people that you want in this account, the students in your class and or your school, whatever level you're signing up for. So
Right. Um, yeah. Where should we
okay,
go next?
okay, so we can talk about like the group. tree system, like the groups within group thing, which um,
I think
was
let's go to one that actually has uh, the Civil War assignment.
yeah. So this is like, so within, where there should be groups in
Groups
this one,
within
right?
groups,
Yeah,
yeah.
there you go. Yeah. So the idea here was, okay, fine, you've got a classroom, let's say, and you can put your students and teachers in it. They can submit blabbers, whatever. But let's say, you want to reuse this more than once, and you don't want um, your favorite president blabbers all intermingling with your civil rights blabbers, or like what some other assignment, right? And so you are so we provide this way of creating a group within a group. So basically it's a group inside your history 8A classroom, for example. And you can make this, for example, like a group that's associated with a particular assignment. So we made a Civil War assignment group, and you can see that it looks exactly the same. Like you've got a students tab, a teachers tab, and so you're given the freedom to you know restrict the membership of this group to a subset of your students. You can also just import the students from the parent group in that upper right. Um, you can add them individually, and so yeah, so basically if you want to just have a like a subfolder almost to submit blabbers to, it's just a way of helping you organize your assignments better.
We like a lot of the thinking was that there was teachers who were using it in various different ways, and sometimes we would even be able to hear it, but also some teachers were able to tell us that they would have students working on blabbers as groups, where they would basically be one would create an image, the other one maybe record the voice, and they were presenting it together. And so this allows teachers to basically uh, make assignments that are like subgroups. So if every student is basically making a blabber within like a group itself, you can group them together so that when you view them, you'll only see the ones that that group has made. And the idea of groups is we call it groups, but we were trying to search for like a word that meant everything. It could mean classroom, it can mean assignment, it can literally mean group, it can mean a project. Like sometimes, so the interesting use cases, Kimmy and I both have our own EDU accounts, of course, right? And I'll use EDU Blabberize to segment my projects. I don't have any students that I'm working with. It's just me, but I want to be able to view the stuff independently. So I have a folder option like within my site. It's like here are the blabbers that I'm making. And like for more complicated projects where you're making many blabbers that you might be downloading and then putting into like a video or something, or this is just a tool that you're using in a process, though that's really useful. It's a really key sort of thing. So the expansive nature of what groups are able to do is really up to you. If you want to segment your blabbers and your students, that's what a group's for.
Yeah, exactly. It's we wanted to kind of leave the flexibility in the user's hands, and uh, the clear trade-off there is complexity, right? So if you give a lot of flexibility, you're also offering up a lot of complexity. And so our concern through building this was, how should we limit it so that we only call the top level thing a classroom, and then if they make a group under that, call it an assignment, but then that cuts you off from using it in other ways, like, separating, kids into teams, or like this is for table A, the four of you are going to share blabbers among yourselves, that kind of thing. So we didn't want to restrict the user in that way. And so we just basically offered it up as everything is a group. You create your groups, call them whatever you want. You can nest them under each other and just use it however you see fit. And hopefully it's not too confusing. But
Honestly, we like the teachers have been incredible. Like I think they've sent us a lot of feedback and we've changed a lot of things and rearranged a lot of the way this has been displayed. But really, they kind of help streamline this process so that it's so much easier to use. Yeah. And like
yeah,
it's amazing. Like we'll see teachers sign up, and within the first 5 minutes of them having a Blabberize EDU account, they'll already have groups within groups and set up with students. Like it's incredible that folks get it. Like it's a complicated idea that I think like once they just wrap around their head around, like from like in the first 30 seconds or whatever, they do run with it pretty quick.
Yeah. I think the other thing that the group set up is that we've been using the example of an individual classroom using Blabberize EDU, but with this hierarchy system, you could actually sign up for Blabberize EDU as an entire school or even an entire district, right? So your top level, instead of History 8A there, imagine it's, Lincoln High School.
Right.
And the groups directly under that would be, individual classes, or, if it's a district, groups underneath that could be individual schools. And so we wanted to provide that flexibility. If you're, we wanted to support the individual teachers, which we're seeing a lot of use out of. But if there's 5 individual teachers using your all using Blabberize, then it's probably better to sign up as a school and then group everything underneath them. So
Right. Right. Um, yeah, I think we've like gone through the groups tab. I'm kind of excited to talk about well, let's talk about users tab. I think users tab is fun because this is basically where a lot of the teachers go to when there's any sort of problems. If the students are saying, I can't get access to my account, this used to be something that we didn't have either, going back to student privacy and student control. Um, we would be between the teachers and the students, basically allowing the students to go through a change password thing, but then we added a button here which allows you can change the student's password for them. And basically tell them, I changed your password to this, you can log back in. Or if the student forgot their account and you want to check to see something through their account, although you should be able to see everything as an administrator, you can log in as them too. You can view their blabbers here, and of course, you can delete their account. Um,
I
we've
mean, if you think about, sorry, just with
Yeah,
the password thing, if
yeah,
you think about how often like we as adults forget our passwords to things, and then just
yeah,
imagine like with kids, right? That's gonna happen all the time. So that was, yeah, a big reason why we decided to give the teachers a bit more control over their kids' passwords and be able to help their kids reset their own passwords if they forgot them.
yep, yeah, yeah. And this has been super useful too, having like this to be able to search and find your students. So just having like a quick search to pull this up is really great. And we've even had like there's little things. Sometimes if a student doesn't enter in their name correctly or something, being able to find them here and click on edit user details where you can change their information. It's been really good for teachers as well too. Um, and I think that's the basics of this. Like this is a very self-explanatory screen. The Blabber screen is the more fun one. I mean, this is where the fun the fun stuff is. You can now view your blabbers within this group, or segmented by the group, so you can see. I only want to see the Civil War assignments or the President's assignment,
I
and
like how like all of these are like actual presidents, but Mr. Jones was the only one who did his on the first chinchilla
yeah,
president.
I know. The chinchilla president. I think that might have been me testing, and I like didn't have a president picture on hand, but I had this chinchilla on hand, so I was like, well, I don't want to break the theme, so he's right next to Washington and above Obama. Works out just fine. Yeah. So the Blabbers tab is great because you can view an assignment. So if you put this up on a projector and you're going through everyone's assignment together, you can jump right into the group. Everyone is able to see their present name there in the images. There's usually some giggles and laughs if like this is the first time that people are seeing the other kids' work. It's a really great way to share it. And yeah, it should be pretty simple to navigate through. This is also where you'll find on the tab on the left side the unsubmitted, which we were talking about before. So if any student didn't submit their blabber, you can very easily come to unsubmitted, do a search, find it, submit it to the group on their behalf.
That
Um,
unsubmitted tab,
yeah.
that's only available on teacher accounts, right? That,
Yes, yeah, students will not be able to see unsubmitted stuff. It's basically your unsubmitted is only open to teachers. The submitted stuff is what's visible to all the other students. So if you come into the groups, the students will only see what has been submitted to a group and is available there. And finally, the grade review. So this was added by a middle school teacher who was teaching social studies for 6 classes, and every single one of those students was doing Benjamin Franklin. And so she had 150 some odd students all doing like a Benjamin Franklin thing, and she's like, I'm about to like scream because this is ridiculous. I've had to listen to 150 of them to make sure. And so this is supposed to alleviate it in some small way where you're having to navigate from blabber to blabber. You can run to the group that you're at, um, and this will give you an easy button to click on to go from one to the other, and you can play through them. And if you don't want to watch the picture going through, you can come through here. You can also adjust the playback speed so you can listen to your kids speaking a little faster.
The pandemic and remote learning.
Yeah,
The pandemic
and get through the whole process a lot faster. I I think like that's one of the difficult things. It's like making blabbers are a simplified video, and so of course the content is something that you have to watch through. But because it's normally just a simple image, being able to play here is fine. And this also handles multi-scene blabbers too. So if you have like multiple scenes, you can jump through the scenes. Most teachers just use it like in the simplest form because in the classroom, um, you don't want to do like a multi-scene blabber because it takes a lot of times for like longer projects. But you can easily get through your graded projects through here, hopefully. I think that's it. Why don't we talk about the? So you've probably seen this. This is a specific thing. If you come down and you're in the teacher account, which owns the Blabberize account, you'll see something called school code. And now this is a very particular thing. School code was this is one of those things that's also gone through a lot of iterations and us trying to figure out. So the idea was that if a one school had a student named James Smith and you wanted to have a login J Smith, and another school had a student and a separate EDU account named James Smith as well, they would not be able to get the James Smith username if this was not segmented in some sort of way. And so usernames have to be unique under a single school code so that you don't have to compete with other schools for the same usernames. That's the general purpose of this. The only time you should have to enter in a school code is if you are trying to log in to a username that needs to be disambiguated from school A or school B. So two schools, they both have James Smiths, and you have to say, which one are you? That's when you're going to have to enter in school code. And this was a change that we put in kind of like after the fact. Before, all teachers would have, all students and teachers logging in would have to always enter in this school code. Got really confusing. Like, I know my username, I know my password. Why can't I log in? What's this school code? It was like another point of communication that had to be made. It was almost like another password that had to be entered. So we adjusted the system where it's only now requested if you need to disambiguate. And for most of the time, you can see this general URL. It's embedded right in there, so students shouldn't have to sign this. So I'm gonna copy this and just log out just for this example's sake, and try and go to this. Now, when you put this link in and you go to log in here, that school code is already embedded in there. If we were trying to log into a user account that needed this to be shown, it would give you an option to type it in, and you'd be able to find it there. I think let's go to uh, give you an example of like sign up links here. Copy this link. So it's shown here to basically sign up for this, and we make it so it's not editable because we assume that the student has clicked a link from the teacher, and so it should already be entered there. But for some case or another, if it's not the right one, you can type in your classroom's name, and it will give you like a type ahead where you then can select, oh, I'm in the sandbox class, and you click on that, and it'll automatically place it in. Hopefully the students won't have to change this, but that's what the school code is, and that's what its purpose was. So if you see that, that's where it was. We went through a lot of iterations. This was a huge issue too.
Yeah, it was one of those kind of things where it ended up being much more like cumbersome to use it that way. And so we've tried to make it like 99% of the time you don't care about what your school code is, but we still make it handy in the subscriptions tab if you need it for that final 1% of times that actually becomes
Right.
necessary.
And if you signed up with a school code that you think is too complicated, now that you understand what its use is, you're available to change it and make it something that's easier or something that's more fitting. I guess that is it. I think we've gone through all the tabs. This is the full tour. This is the first time we've ever done a full tour like this. And if you've stuck through it all this way, holy cow! Thank you so much. Send us an email. I'll give you a gift. I'll give you something for it.
Yeah, I mean, any feedback that you have would be really useful. As we've said, we've incorporated tons of feedback, several iterations of this to try to make it a little bit easier and a little bit more intuitive. But if you can think of anything like or new features that you don't see here that you wish you had, all of that is good information for us, and we are always happy to hear it.
My email is mo@blabberize.com, and Kimi's email is kimi@blabberize.com, and we read our email like crazy. Anything that you send, we will definitely read and reply. Thank you so much for listening.